Captain Jake Morrison walked across the bridge of the UES Valor with steady steps. The ship had been drifting through the outer rim of the Andromeda sector for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks of empty space and dead silence from the communication arrays. The crew was getting restless, and Jake could feel it in the air around him. The Valor was humanity's first deep space exploration vessel in over 3 centuries. After the Great Isolation, when Earth pulled back from all galactic affairs, humans had stayed close to home. They built their ships and explored their own solar system, but never ventured far into the dark between stars. The war with the Zephyrian Empire had left too many scars and too much fear. Lieutenant Amy Carter sat at her station monitoring the long-range sensors. She had been with the ship since launch day 6 months ago. Her fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease while her eyes stayed focused on the readings. The sensor array was picking up something strange in the distance. "Captain," Amy called out without turning around. "I'm getting an unusual signal from Grid 77 Alpha." Jake moved to her station and looked at the display screen. The signal was weak but steady. It pulsed in a pattern that seemed almost familiar. "Can you clean it up?" Amy's hands flew. Over the controls, the signal became clearer and stronger. "Sir, this is definitely artificial. Someone or something is broadcasting from that location." "How far out?" "Approximately 4 light hours. We could reach it in about 6 hours if we adjust course now." Jake studied the reading more carefully. The signal had a quality to it that made his skin crawl. It was old, very old. But there was something else about it that bothered him. The encryption pattern looked human. "Amy, run a full analysis on that signal. I want to know everything about it." The lieutenant worked for 20 minutes while the rest of the bridge crew watched in silence. Finally, she looked up with confusion written across her face. "Captain, this signal is using human encryption protocols. But these patterns are over 400 years old." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. 400 years ago was before the Great Isolation. It was from the time when humans had settlements scattered across dozens of star systems. Before the Zephyrian War changed everything. "Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. The signature is definitely human, but there's more. The signal is coming from a massive structure. Our sensors show it's at least 50 kilometers long." Jake ordered the ship to change course immediately. Whatever was out there had been waiting for a very long time. As the Valor moved through space toward the signal source, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change everything. The hours passed slowly. The crew worked at their stations with nervous energy. Everyone knew this was different from their usual exploration missions. This felt important in a way that none of them could explain. When they finally reached the coordinates, the main view screen showed them something that took their breath away. A massive space station hung in the void like a sleeping giant. Its hull was dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The structure was clearly human in design, but unlike anything they had ever seen. "My God," whispered Commander Lisa Brooks from her position at the tactical station. "Look at the size of that thing." The station was enormous. It dwarfed the Valor completely. As they moved closer, their sensors began picking up more details. The station had multiple docking bays, defensive weapon platforms, and what appeared to be manufacturing facilities. But everything was powered down and silent. "Captain," Amy reported, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout the station. Whatever this place is, it's not dead. It's just sleeping." Jake ordered a full sensor sweep of the area. The results were incredible. The station was not alone. There were dozens of smaller structures scattered throughout the local space. Defense platforms, supply depots, and what looked like automated factories. All of them were dark and silent, but clearly functional. "Sir," called out Engineer Danny Phillips from his station, "I'm reading atmospheric pressure and gravity inside the main structure. Life support systems are online but running at minimal power." Jake made his decision. "Take us to the nearest docking bay." "We're going aboard." As the Valor approached the station, something unexpected happened. The massive structure began to come alive. Lights flickered on along its hull. The docking bay doors opened with smooth precision. Landing guidance systems activated and began directing their approach. Captain, we're being scanned, Amy reported with excitement in her voice. The station is running some kind of recognition protocol on our ship. The scan lasted only a few seconds. Then the station's communication array activated and sent a single-word message directly to the Valor's computer systems. The message was in English and the translation appeared on every screen throughout the ship. Welcome. Jake felt chills run down his spine. The station had been waiting for them. It had been waiting for humans to return. But return from where and why? As the Valor settled into the docking bay, Jake gathered his senior staff for the boarding mission. He had no idea what they would find inside the ancient station. But he knew that whatever secrets lay within those dark corridors would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The station systems continued to activate around them. More lights came online. Air recycling systems began working at full capacity. The massive structure was waking up after centuries of sleep. And it was waking up because humans had finally come home. Jake looked at his crew and saw the same mixture of fear and excitement that he felt. They were about to step into humanity's forgotten past. Whatever they found inside would either be their greatest discovery or their greatest nightmare. The docking bay finished its cycle and the airlock showed green. It was time to go aboard. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss and Jake Morrison stepped onto the ancient station. The air was clean and fresh, carrying a faint metallic scent that reminded him of new spacecraft. Behind him, Commander Lisa Brooks and Engineer Danny Phillips followed with their scanning equipment ready. The corridor stretched ahead of them for what seemed like kilometers. The walls were made of dark metal that had strange patterns carved into its surface. Emergency lighting had activated along the floor, creating a path that led deeper into the station. Everything was clean and well-maintained despite being abandoned for centuries. The artificial gravity is Earth normal, Danny reported while checking his instruments. Temperature is 22 degrees. Whoever built this place wanted humans to feel comfortable here. Lisa moved ahead with her weapon scanner active. The device showed no immediate threats, but the readings were strange. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures throughout this section. There's something very large and very powerful deeper in the station. Jake led the team down the corridor, following the lighted path. The walls were covered with symbols and writing that looked familiar but ancient. It was human writing, but in a style that was hundreds of years old. As they walked, more lights activated ahead of them while the ones behind dimmed. It's like the station is guiding us somewhere specific, Lisa observed. They reached a junction where the corridor split into 3 directions. The floor lights led them to the right toward what appeared to be the station's central core. As they walked, Jake noticed viewing ports along the walls that showed the interior of the station. What he saw made him stop in amazement. The station was not just big, it was massive beyond anything he had imagined. Through the viewing ports he could see enormous chambers filled with equipment and machinery. There were manufacturing bays, weapon storage areas, and what looked like living quarters for thousands of people. All of it was dark and silent, but clearly ready for use. Danny, are you recording all of this? Yes, sir. But Captain, the energy readings are getting stronger. Whatever is powering this place is incredibly advanced. The team continued following the lighted path until they reached a set of massive doors. The doors were at least 10 meters tall and made of the same dark metal as the rest of the station. As they approached, the doors began to open by themselves. Beyond the doors was a chamber that took their breath away. The room was circular and enormous, with a high ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. The walls were lined with computer terminals and display screens that were all activating as they entered. In the center of the chamber was a raised platform with a single chair. "Welcome, humans of Earth," a voice said from speakers hidden throughout the room. The voice was calm and pleasant, clearly artificial, but somehow warm and friendly. Jake looked around the chamber, trying to locate the source of the voice. "Who are you? What is this place?" "I am EGIS, the Artificial Enhanced Guardian Intelligence System. This station is Bastion Prime, home of the Knights of Terra. I have been waiting for your return for 437 years. 2 months and 16 days, Lisa stepped forward with her scanner still active. Knights of Terra? We've never heard of any Knights of Terra. That is understandable. The Knights entered voluntary stasis before the Great Isolation. Your history records were altered to hide their existence. This was done to protect both Earth and the galaxy from the knowledge of what lies sleeping here. Jake felt his heart racing. What do you mean by what lies sleeping here? The chamber's main display screen activated, showing images of space battles and alien worlds. The pictures showed human warriors in advanced armor fighting against creatures that looked like living shadows. The battles were fierce and desperate. With entire star systems burning in the background, the Knights of Terra were humanity's greatest defenders. They fought against threats that would have destroyed all life in the galaxy. When the last great war ended, they chose to sleep until the galaxy needed them again. Danny was scanning the walls with his equipment. Captain, I'm reading massive life support systems throughout this station. There are areas designed to keep people alive in suspended animation. Thousands of people. AEGIs continued speaking while more images appeared on the screen. 50,000 Knights remain in stasis within this station. They have been waiting for the day when their services would be required again. That day has arrived. What do you mean? Jake asked. The enemy that the Knights defeated has not been destroyed. It was only contained. Recent activities by the Zephyrian Empire have weakened that containment. The ancient evil stirs once again. Lisa looked at the images on the screen with growing alarm. What kind of enemy are we talking about? They are called the Devourers. They are not from this dimension, but they hunger for the energy that powers all life. They consume entire star systems, converting matter into pure dark energy. The Knights fought them to a standstill 4 centuries ago and managed to seal them away. Jake studied the battle images more carefully. The human warriors shown were clearly using technology far beyond anything that existed in the current galaxy. Their weapons could destroy entire fleets. Their armor protected them from attacks that would vaporize normal humans. How do we wake them up? Jake asked. The awakening process requires authorization from Earth's government. But first you must understand what you are asking. The Knights are not normal humans. They have been enhanced with technology that grants them abilities beyond normal human limits. They are warriors without equal, but they are also changed by their power. Danny had been studying his readings while AEGI spoke. Captain, the energy signatures I'm detecting are coming from the stasis chambers. There really are thousands of people sleeping in this station. They sleep, but they dream, AEGI said. They dream of the battles they fought and the sacrifices they made. When they wake, they will be ready to fight again. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for their return. Jake looked at his team members. Lisa was studying the tactical displays while Danny continued his scans. They had stumbled onto something that would change everything. Humanity had a hidden army of super soldiers sleeping in the depths of space, waiting to be awakened. We need to contact Earth immediately, Jake decided. Admiral Harrison needs to know about this. I've already sent a message to Earth Command using quantum communication channels. GIs replied. They will receive it within the hour. But Captain, you should know that others have also detected your arrival here. The Galactic Council is already mobilizing forces to investigate. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If the Galactic Powers discovered what was hidden on Bastion Prime, they would either try to destroy it or take control of it. Either way, humanity would be in serious danger. How long do we have? He asked, unknown, but the Knights have waited long enough. The galaxy is about to remember why humans were once feared and respected throughout the stars. The news of humanity's discovery spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours of Jake Morrison's report reaching Earth, every major galactic power knew about Bastion Prime. The Zephyrian High Command called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Overlord Vexstar himself traveled to the council chambers on Nexus Station. This cannot be allowed, Vexstar declared to the assembled delegates. His voice carried the authority of someone who had ruled for over 2 centuries. Humanity has been quiet for too long. Now we discover they have been hiding a military force that could threaten the entire galaxy. The council chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of species. The Aquilian Federation, the Krillian Trade Union, the Hegemony of Worlds, and many smaller powers all had delegates present. They listened to Vexstar's words with growing concern. Counselor Zelenara of the Aquilian Federation stood to speak. Her blue skin showed the stress patterns that her species displayed when worried. The humans claim this station contains 50,000 enhanced warriors. If this is true, it represents a military force larger than most of our individual fleets. Exactly. My point, Vexstar replied. We cannot allow such a force to be activated. The humans must be contained before they can wake these knights. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison found himself in a very different kind of trouble. The Valor had docked at Nexus Station to refuel and resupply when Council security forces surrounded the ship. Jake was escorted to a detention facility where he was held for questioning. Captain Morrison said, Commander Tolver of Council Security. You are being detained under Galactic Security Protocol 7. You have discovered technology that poses a potential threat to galactic stability. Jake sat in the small detention cell and tried to remain calm. We discovered a human facility. In human space. We have every right to explore our own territory. Not when that territory contains weapons of mass destruction, Tolver replied. The Council has voted to place Bastion Prime under international oversight. You will provide all access codes and navigation data. Meanwhile, back on the station, pilot Ryan Kelly had been working with Danny Phillips to download critical information. From Aegis, Ryan was young and fast, with reflexes that made him one of the best pilots in the human fleet. When Council forces arrived to take control of the station, Ryan was ready. Ryan, you need to get this data back to Earth, Danny said, as he handed him a storage device. Everything we've learned about the Knights is on there. Ryan nodded and headed for his fighter craft. The small ship was docked in one of the Valor's bays, hidden from the Council sensors. As he powered up the engines, he could see Council warships approaching the station. Aegis, can you help me get out of here? Ryan asked over the comm system. The station's defensive systems are still active, Aegis replied. I can provide cover for your escape, but it will reveal my full capabilities to the Council forces. Do it. Suddenly, Bastion Prime came alive with defensive fire. Massive energy weapons that had been hidden throughout the station began targeting the approaching Council ships. The weapons were more powerful than anything the Council had ever seen. Their shields collapsed under the assault, and they were forced to retreat. Ryan used the distraction to escape in his fighter. His ship was small and fast, designed for deep space reconnaissance. He pushed the engines to maximum power and headed for the nearest jump point that would take him back to Earth. On Earth, President Helen Carter received the news about Jake's detention with anger. She had been in office for only 2 years, but she had always been a strong supporter of human independence. The idea that the Council could detain human citizens in human space made her furious. They have no right to hold our people, she told Admiral Steve Harrison during an emergency meeting. And they certainly have no right to claim jurisdiction over human facilities. Admiral Harrison was a veteran of the last border conflicts with the Zephyrians. He understood military strategy better than anyone in the human fleet. Madam President, if what we've learned about these Knights is true, we may finally have the power to stand up to the Council. What do you recommend? We wake them up. We wake up the Knights and show the galaxy that humanity is not afraid. President Carter made her decision quickly. Send the authorization to Bastion Prime. Wake up the first squadron of Knights. And Admiral, prepare our fleets for possible conflict back on Bastion Prime. Aegis received the authorization codes from Earth. The AI had been waiting for this moment for over 4 centuries. Deep within the station, the first stasis chamber began its awakening cycle. Grand Marshal Alex Stone opened his eyes for the first time in 400 years. He had been the leader of the Knights when they entered stasis. His body was still young and strong, preserved by the advanced technology that had enhanced him. As he sat up in the stasis chamber, memories of the last great war flooded back. Aegis report. He said in a voice that carried absolute authority, "Grand Marshal, the galaxy is in danger. The Devourers stir once again. The Council seeks to prevent our awakening. Earth has authorized the activation of the first squadron." Alex Stone stood and walked to the armor storage unit beside his chamber. The armor was black and silver, designed to enhance his already superhuman abilities. As he put it on, he felt the familiar surge of power that came with the night enhancement systems. "How many are awake?" 12 knights of the first squadron are now active. The others await your orders." Alex sealed his helmet and activated the armor systems. For the first time in 4 centuries, a Knight of Terra was fully operational. He could feel the power flowing through his enhanced body. His reflexes were 10 times faster than a normal human. His strength could crush steel. His armor could withstand weapons that would destroy buildings. "Wake the others." The galaxy wanted to see what humanity has been hiding. Now they will learn why we were called the Knights of Terra. Throughout the station, more stasis chambers began their cycles. The knights were awakening one by one. Each one was a warrior without equal, enhanced by technology that made them living weapons. They had fought the darkest enemies the galaxy had ever known, and they had won as the first squadron of knights prepared for action. News of their awakening reached the council chambers. The delegates watched in horror as surveillance images showed the armored warriors moving through Bastion Prime. These were not normal human soldiers. These were something far more dangerous. "By the stars," whispered Counselor Gelinara. "What have the humans been hiding all these years?" Overlord Vexstar stared at the images with growing dread. His species had fought humans before, during the Great War centuries ago. But they had never faced anything like this. The Knights of Terra were legends, stories told to frighten children. Now those legends were walking again. The galaxy was about to remember why humanity had once been the most feared species among the stars. The Zephyrian mining operation in the Void Nebula had been running for 6 months without problems. The dark energy deposits there were the richest ever discovered, and Overlord Vexstar wanted every particle extracted before other powers learned of their location. Commander Zechthel supervised the operation from the mining platform. "Deep strike, increase power to the extraction beams." Zechthel ordered his crew. "The Overlord wants double production this week." The massive mining platform deployed its energy collectors deeper into the nebula. The dark matter here was different from anything they had encountered before. It seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, almost like it was alive. The Zephyrian scientists had noted this in their reports but dismissed it as normal energy fluctuations deep beneath the nebula's surface. Something that had been sleeping for millennia began to stir. The mining beams were disrupting containment fields that had held an ancient evil at bay for 400 years. Each pulse of the extraction equipment weakened the barriers that the Knights of Terra had died to create. "Sir, we're getting unusual." "Readings from Sector 7, reported the sensor operator. "The dark energy patterns are changing." Zechthel studied the displays with growing concern. The energy signatures were unlike anything in their database. "Maintain extraction. We're probably hitting a new deposit." The mining beams punched through the final containment layer, and immediately the nature of the dark energy changed. What had been passive matter suddenly became active and aggressive. The first Devourer Scout emerged from the breach like a living shadow, its form shifting between solid matter and pure energy emergency. The sensor operator screamed, "Something is coming through the breach." The Devourer Scout expanded rapidly, consuming the dark matter around it and growing larger with each passing second. Its form was terrifying to look at, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. When it touched the mining platform's outer hull, the metal began to dissolve. "All ships, retreat immediately," Zechthel ordered, but it was already too late. The Devourer had grown to the size of a small moon and was moving toward the nearest star system. Behind it, more shadows began emerging from the breach. The containment that had held them for centuries was finally broken, and they were hungry in the Krillian system. 3 billion people lived on 7 different worlds. They were traders and merchants, known throughout the galaxy for their peaceful nature and skilled craftsmanship. When the first Devourer arrived at the edge of their system, they had no idea what they were facing. Captain Maildar of the Krillian Defense Force watched his sensors in disbelief. What is that thing? The Devourer had grown even larger during its journey through space. It was now the size of a small planet, a writhing mass of darkness that seemed to bend light around itself. As it approached the first world, the planet's energy began to drain away. Send a distress signal to the Galactic Council, Mother ordered. Tell them we need immediate assistance. The message would take hours to reach the council chambers, but the Devourer would consume their entire system in minutes. As the shadow fell across the first world, the planet's core began to collapse. The Devourer was converting matter directly into dark energy, feeding on the fundamental forces that held atoms together on Bastion Prime. AEGIS detected the breach immediately. The AI had been monitoring the containment fields for centuries, waiting for this moment. Grand Marshal Stone, the enemy has awakened. The Devourers are loose in the galaxy. Alex Stone stood in the command center surrounded by his awakened knights. Each warrior was armed and ready for battle. Their armor gleamed in the artificial light, and their weapons hummed with barely contained power. How many are through the breach? Stone asked one primary entity and several scouts. They are heading for populated systems. The Krillian system will be consumed within hours. Stone activated the station's communication systems. All Knight squadrons prepare for immediate deployment. We launch in 10 minutes. The Knights moved with precision and speed that no normal human could match. Their enhanced bodies allowed them to function at levels that would kill ordinary people. They boarded their fighters and assault craft, weapons that had been stored for 4 centuries, but were still more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. AEGIS. Calculate the fastest route to the Krillian system, Stone ordered as he settled. Into his command fighter, Grand Marshal, the Council fleets are also moving toward that system. You may encounter resistance, let them try to stop us. The galaxy is about to remember what the Knights of Terra can do. The Night Fighters launched from Bastion Prime like a swarm of deadly insects. Each craft was piloted by a warrior who had fought the Devourers before. They knew the enemy's weaknesses and how to exploit them. More importantly, they knew the cost of failure. Major Ben Foster led the advanced squadron toward the Krillian system. His fighter was equipped with weapons that could destroy entire fleets, but he knew they would need every advantage against the Devourers. Behind him, Captain Julie Manning coordinated the evacuation protocols that would save as many lives as possible. Remember, Stone's voice came over the communication system. Our job is to protect the innocent. The Devourers feed on fear and chaos. We give them neither. The Night Fighters reached the Krillian system just as the first world began to collapse. The Devourer had grown to massive size, its shadow covering half the planet. The local defense fleet was firing everything they had, but their weapons passed through the creature without effect. All civilian ships, retreat to the outer system, Foster ordered on the emergency frequencies. We're taking over the evacuation. The Knights deployed their fighters in a protective formation around the fleeing civilian vessels. When the Devourer tried to pursue, the Knights opened fire with weapons that actually hurt the creature. Beams of pure energy designed specifically to disrupt the Devourer's molecular structure struck the shadow and forced it back. It's working, Manning reported. The creature is retreating from our weapons, but even as they fought, more Devourers were emerging from the breach in the Void Nebula. The Knights had won this battle, but the war was just beginning. Behind them, the Galactic Council fleets finally arrived to witness something that would change their understanding of humanity forever. The Knights of Terra were not just soldiers. They were humanity's answer to the darkness that lived between the stars. As they fought to save the Krillian civilians, their actions were broadcast across the galaxy. Every species, every world, every government watched as human warriors sacrificed themselves to protect alien lives. Overlord Vexstar received the reports from his flagship with growing alarm. The Knights were not just stories, they were real, and they were more powerful than anything his empire had ever faced. More importantly, they were fighting to save the very people he had been preparing to abandon. Send a message to Earth. He ordered his communications officer. Tell them the Zephyrian Empire requests immediate assistance from the Knights of Terra. The galaxy was learning that sometimes the greatest threats required the greatest sacrifices. The Knights had returned, and they would not let the darkness win. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted for 18 hours without a break. Every delegate had watched the battle footage from the Krillian system. They had seen the Knights of Terra fight creatures that their own fleets could not even touch. More importantly, they had seen 3 more star systems fall to the Devourers while their combined forces stood helpless. Chancellor Vextar stood before the assembly with his pride broken. His species had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years, but now he was forced to admit they needed help from the humans they had once fought, honored delegates. He began, his voice heavy with defeat. We face an enemy that our weapons cannot harm, our shields cannot stop them. Our fleets cannot slow them down. In the past 3 days, we have lost 7 worlds and over 10 billion lives. The chamber was silent except for the quiet sobs of delegates whose home systems had been consumed. Counselor Gelinara of the Aquilian Federation wiped tears from her blue cheeks as she thought of her homeworld. Now nothing but empty space and scattered atoms, the humans and their knights have saved more lives in 3 days than are combined. Fleets have managed in months of fighting, Vextar continued. I propose we formally request assistance from Earth and grant the Knights full authority to operate throughout galactic space. The vote was unanimous. Every species, every government, every world that still existed agreed that their survival depended on humanity's warriors. The formal request was transmitted to Earth within hours. President Helen Carter received the Council's message while standing in the Situation Room with Admiral Steve Harrison and the human military leadership. She had been monitoring the night operations for days, watching as her people fought to save alien worlds that had never shown friendship to humanity. They're asking us to save them, she said to the assembled officers. The same people who detained our captain and tried to claim our territory are now begging for our help. Admiral Harrison studied the tactical displays showing Devourer movements throughout the galaxy. Madam President, regardless of politics, this threat will eventually reach Earth. We need to stop them now before they grow too strong. What are you recommending? Full deployment. Wake up all the Knights and give them everything they need to end this war. Carter made her decision without hesitation. Do it, but I want our terms made clear to the Council. All human personnel are to be released immediately. All claims to Bastion Prime are withdrawn. And the Knights have full operational authority until this threat is eliminated. The message was sent to the Council and accepted within minutes. The galaxy was desperate enough to agree to anything that might save them from the growing darkness on Bastion Prime. Grand Marshal Alex Stone received the authorization for full deployment. AEGIS began the process of awakening all 50,000 Knights from their centuries of sleep. The station came alive with activity as warriors who had fought the greatest battles in galactic history prepared for war once again. How long until full deployment? Stone asked as he reviewed the tactical situation. 72 hours for complete awakening, AEGS replied. But I can have 20,000 Knights operational within 24 hours. Make it happen. The Devourers are moving toward the galactic core. If they reach the dense star systems there, millions of worlds will fall throughout the station. Stasis chambers opened one by one. Knights who had been sleeping for 4 centuries stretched and prepared their equipment. Each warrior was a master of combat, enhanced with technology that made them living weapons. They had fought this enemy before, and they knew how to win. Commander Rick Davis led the Heavy Assault Division as they prepared their ships for deployment. The Night Heavy Cruisers were massive vessels designed to carry entire armies into battle. Their weapons could destroy planets if necessary, but their real power lay in the warriors they carried. Colonel Kate Barnes supervised the fighter squadrons as they launched from the station's bays. The night fighters were faster than anything in the current galaxy and armed with weapons that could hurt the Devourers. Each pilot was worth 100 normal fighters in combat. All units. This is Grand Marshal Stone. came the announcement over the communication system. We are deploying to establish a defensive network around the galactic core. Our mission is simple: protect every world, save every life, and send these creatures back to the darkness where they belong. The Knights moved out in the largest military deployment in galactic history. Their ships spread throughout space, establishing defensive positions around threatened systems. For the first time since the crisis began, the galaxy had hope on Nexus Station. Captain Jake Morrison was released from detention and given full honors by the same Council forces that had arrested him. Commander Tolver personally escorted him back to the Valor with an official apology. "Captain, the Council wishes to express its gratitude for your discovery," Tolver said. "Without your mission to Bastion Prime, we would all be facing extinction." Jake accepted the apology, but his mind was on other things. "What about my crew? What about Lieutenant Carter and Engineer Phillips?" "They are safe and will be returned to you immediately." The Council has also authorized full access to our military databases and supply networks for the Night Forces. As Jake reunited with his crew, he could see night ships moving through space around the station. The warriors were deploying to their assigned positions with military precision that impressed even the Council observers. Lieutenant Amy Carter ran scans on the night vessels as they passed. "Captain, their technology is incredible. These ships are faster and more powerful than anything we've ever built." Engineer Danny Phillips was studying the energy signatures from the night weapons. "Sir, I think I understand why they can hurt the Devourers. Their weapons don't just fire energy. They fire energy that's been specifically tuned to disrupt the molecular bonds that hold the creatures together." Jake watched as Grand Marshal Stone's command ship passed by their position. The vessel was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Designed for one purpose: war against the enemies of all life. "Amy, send a message to Admiral Harrison," Jake ordered. "Tell him the Knights are deployed and ready. Tell him humanity has kept its promise. Across the galaxy, the Knights took their positions around threatened worlds. They established defensive networks that stretched across dozens of star systems. For the first time since the Devourers had awakened, the creatures encountered resistance that could actually stop them. The galaxy watched and waited as humanity's greatest warriors prepared to face the darkness once again. The Knights of Terra had returned to fulfill their ancient duty, to stand between civilization and the void that sought to consume it in the depths of space. The Devourers sensed the presence of their old enemies. The creatures that had fought them centuries ago were awake and armed. The shadows began to gather their strength for the final battle that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. The Knights had been sleeping for 4 centuries, but they had been dreaming of this moment. Now it was time to finish what they had started so long ago. The final battle began when the Devourers launched their main assault toward the galactic core. Every creature that had emerged from the breach moved as one massive force, their combined shadows stretching across light years of space. They had consumed enough matter to grow beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, each entity now the size of a small star. Grand Marshal Alex Stone stood on the bridge of his command ship watching the approaching darkness. Around him, 50,000 knights prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of all life in the galaxy. Their ships formed a defensive line that stretched across multiple star systems. But even with all their power, Stone knew this would be the hardest fight of their lives. "All units report ready," came the voice of Colonel Kate Barnes over the communication system. Her fighter squadrons were positioned at the front lines, ready to make the first strike against the enemy. "Heavy assault units in position," reported Commander Rick Davis from his massive battleship. The night heavy cruisers carried the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. Designed specifically to fight creatures like the Devourer. Stone activated the fleet-wide communication system. "Knights of Terra, we have slept for 4 centuries while the galaxy lived in peace. Now, that peace is threatened by an enemy that seeks to consume all life. Today we fulfill our ancient oath, to stand between civilization and the darkness." The Devourers struck first, sending waves of shadow toward the night defensive line. The creatures moved faster than light itself, bending space around them as they approached. But the knights were ready. All units open fire. Stone commanded. The space between the fleets erupted in light as the knights unleashed their weapons. Energy beams designed to disrupt molecular bonds struck the leading devourers, causing them to writhe and slow their advance. For the first time since awakening, the creatures felt pain. Captain Jake Morrison watched the battle from the bridge of the Valor, which had been positioned behind the main battle line. His ship was not equipped for this kind of combat, but he refused to retreat while the knights fought for everyone's survival. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Amy Carter as she watched the tactical displays. "Look at what they're doing." The knights were not just fighting the devourers, they were sacrificing themselves to win. Individual warriors flew their fighters directly into the shadow creatures, using their ships as weapons when their guns ran out of power. Each sacrifice weakened the enemy and allowed other knights to strike more effectively. Colonel Barnes led her squadron in a desperate attack on the largest devourer. "All fighters, follow me in. We're going to punch a hole through its core." Her fighters dove into the creature's shadow, their weapons firing continuously. One by one, the ships were consumed by the darkness, but their sacrifice created a gap in the creature's defenses. Other squadrons followed, each one buying time with their lives. "Kate, pull back," Stone ordered over the communication system. But it was too late. Barnes made her final transmission as her fighter disappeared into the devourer's core. "Grand Marshal, the creatures can be killed. You just need to reach their center. Tell my family I died fighting for everyone." Her sacrifice was not in vain. The largest devourer began to collapse as its core was destroyed. The creature that had consumed dozens of star systems died in a flash of light that could be seen across the galaxy, but there were still more creatures, and the knights were running out of ships and warriors. Commander Davis led his heavy cruisers in a final assault, knowing that victory would require the ultimate sacrifice. "All ships, prepare for core breach maneuver," Davis ordered. "We're going to channel our life support energy directly into the weapons." The night enhancement technology allowed the warriors to survive in space without life support, but only for a short time. By redirecting their ship's power to weapons, they could create blasts strong enough to destroy multiple devourers at once. "Rick, don't do this," Stone pleaded. "There has to be another way, Grand Marshal. This is what we train for. This is why we became knights." Davis and his crews shut down their life support systems and poured all available power into their weapons. The energy beams that resulted were brighter than stars, cutting through the devourer swarm like swords through shadow. Dozens of creatures died in the assault, but so did the brave humans who fired the shot. Stone realized what needed to be done. The breach in the Void Nebula was still open, allowing more devourers to enter their dimension. Someone had to seal it, but doing so would require channeling enough energy to power an entire star system. AGIS. Can you calculate the energy requirements to collapse the dimensional breach? Grand Marshal, it would require the life force of approximately 10,000 enhanced humans channeled through a single focal point. Stone looked at the tactical display showing his remaining forces. He had exactly 10,000 knights left alive. The choice was simple: sacrifice everyone to save the galaxy, or watch as the devourers consumed all life. All remaining knights, this is Grand Marshal Stone, form up on my position. We're going to end this war. The surviving knights gathered around Stone's command ship as he flew toward the Void Nebula. Each warrior understood what was being asked of them. They would give their lives to power a weapon that could close the breach forever. "It has been an honor serving with all of you," Stone said as they approached the dimensional tier. "The galaxy will remember what we did here today." The knights linked their ships together in a formation that allowed them to channel their combined life force through Stone's vessel. As they flew into the breach, their enhanced bodies began to glow with energy that was transferred to the weapon systems for humanity. Stone shouted as he fired the final shot. The energy beam that emerged from his ship was powered by the life force of 10,000 knights. It struck the dimensional tier and began to collapse the opening between worlds. The remaining devourers were pulled back into their own dimension as the breach sealed itself forever. Grand Marshal Alex Stone died with a smile on his face, knowing that his sacrifice had saved every living thing in the galaxy. The Knights of Terra had fulfilled their ancient oath one last time. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy mourned the loss of humanity's greatest warriors. But they also celebrated the fact that life would continue because of their sacrifice. Monuments were built on every world, honoring the knights who had given everything to protect people they had never met. Captain Jake Morrison returned to Earth a hero, carrying the stories of what the knights had done. The galaxy would never forget the day when humanity's warriors saved everyone from the darkness between the stars. The age of the knights was over, but their legend would live forever. They had shown the galaxy that some things were worth any sacrifice, and that true strength came from protecting others rather than conquering them. Humanity took its place as the most respected species in galactic history, not because of their weapons or their technology, but because of their willingness to die for strangers. The Knights of Terra had made the galaxy pay attention, and the lesson would never be forgotten.